first attempt at a YouTube video, we had a lot of requests to start a YouTube, and we kind of realized it allowed us to do more long form content that would usually have to be broken up on TikTok. So we figured that we would just kind of do a little introduction and try to answer some of the more more frequent questions that we get on our TikTok lives and stuff like that.
Yeah. So we got here, like McKay said, because of TikTok. And so we sort of went viral, I guess you could say, the last few weeks on TikTok. And
It's been crazy.
we have thousands. We have like, I think as of this point, like 37,000 followers, which is like insane. And one of our videos like went way viral with like 1 million views. And so that's how we got here. So just a quick intro about the two of us. My name is Jordan. We live here in Salt Lake City, Utah, in the homegrown, lovely Mormon area. We decided to start this content because we were kind of in a space where we were like feeling kind of isolated by the choice we made to leave the Mormon church. And so we had heard that there was a great Exmo community out there. And so we figured, why not share our story?
Yeah, so that was pretty big. I'm McKay, to begin. Both of us grew up in the church, and we got married about 3 years ago. We have a young 7-month-old son. I served a mission in Honduras for 2 years, which is very common of Mormon young men. But we just kind of wanted to share a little bit about the reasons why we left the church. So some of the things when I was younger that I noticed that were kind of odd, and as I've grown, they've become more and more inexcusable, were the racism that existed in the church, that still exists in its bones from the founding of the church, and the treatment of people who belong to the LGBTQ plus community. Like I said, as I grew older, it became less and less excusable. I was born in the church, and it was kind of ingrained in my blood that those things, it didn't matter,
justified
or
somehow.
were justified, or whatever you want to say. I don't excuse it now. I think that behavior is unacceptable. But it was something that kind of, we say in the community, put on my shelf, and I just kind of forgot about it. But yeah.
We have a lot of people that ask us like how we got to the point where we left, or what was the like first initial thing that started your transition out. And it's kind of hard to pinpoint, because when you're in a faith transition, or when you're starting a faith transition, you don't really know. Like it's hard to pinpoint like a single moment where I was like, oh, like I'm on my way out, because as a member, you're not like ingrained to think that way. And so I would just come across things that didn't sit well with me, and I would then put them on my shelf. I never in a million years I'd imagined that it would be a faith transition that would lead me out of the church. So it's kind of hard to say what started things, but probably one of the biggest things for me was going through the temple. I went through the temple and did the endowment ceremony when I was I 20? Was I 21?
I think so.
I don't remember. But
you were just barely 21 when we got married.
So I was probably 19 then. Yeah.
That's when I did it.
So I went through the temple, and I, as a human being, have anxiety, and nobody would tell me what was going on, like what was going to happen in the temple, which is traditional to Mormon people. The stuff that happens in the temple, they say is sacred, and they're not going to share it with you because they promise not to. And so nobody would tell me what to expect. And as a person with anxiety, that just wasn't going to work for me. And so I actually ended up going onto the internet and finding a hidden camera footage of the endowment ceremony inside the temple. And I watched the most of it, and it was so bizarre and cult-like to me that I honestly thought that there's no way that that could be what happens in the temple. Like I thought there would be no, like, I thought somebody made it up, and I had just encountered something totally false. And so I just kind of put it in the back of my mind and not worried about it, and tried to not worry about it. And then when I ended up going through the temple, it was exactly what the video described, which was very unsettling. It's hard to explain. It's usually an hour and a half to 2 hours long. There's lots of different things that happen. But overall, the whole feel of it was very unsettling to me. But when you're going through the temple for the first time, you usually have Mormon family members there with you. And so you're like, I was just looking around at the people, like the family members I knew that were with me, and like I was just like, they're just sitting there and letting this all happen. And nobody's like, I was looking for someone to like acknowledge the fact that it was bizarre. I was looking for somebody else to be like, yeah, it's weird, you know, and nothing. Like my whole, like a bunch of family members were there, and everybody was just smiling and having a great time. And so I felt like the odd one out. And at the beginning of the ceremony, they tell you that if you're not ready to make these promises or covenants to God, that you can leave. But they say this, and then the room is silent, and you're sitting in like a theater type style room. And when you're going to the temple for the first time, they put you at the front. So you're like in the very, like, here's the front, and then there's a bunch of people seated behind you. And so if I were to get up and leave, I would have to walk past not only all of my family members, but all the other patrons and people that were in the temple that day. And I did not even know, like, where I would go if I were to walk away. Like, the expectation is that you continue. So yes, they tell you can leave, but I have never heard of anybody walking out, personally.
I was kind of in the same boat, except I had always kind of been told, not exactly what happens in the temple, but how important it is. So even when these things were happening and I thought it was very strange, I was rationalizing that it's what everybody, including God, wanted me to do. And at the time, I was only a few weeks out from leaving on my mission to go to Honduras. So if I were to not go through with it, then I would not be leaving to go on my mission, and there would be a lot of social repercussions coming and stemming from that.
We both went through the temple and the endowments and got our garments that you wear and all of that not way before, but before we got married. He was leaving on a mission. I got mine, I think a year before you came back. And so we were not really connected at the time. We had met in high school, but we didn't date in high school. We were just teenage rebel friends in high school. Mm-hmm. And so despite our awkward feelings about the endowment, they typically tell you that you struggle with it or you're not understanding it because you're not going enough. And so they tell you to go and go and go. And like, the more you go, the more will be revealed to you. And I went multiple times, and that was not my experience. It doesn't become any less cult-like. I didn't gain any more understanding. People say it's all about symbolism. And yes, I understand that most of it is about symbolism, but that doesn't take away the extreme bizarre and cult-likeness of it all. And so he went and finished his mission. I got endowed, went to the temple, stayed in the church. And then we reconnected when he came back from his mission, started dating, got engaged. We were both active in the church at the time. And we got married in the Salt Lake Temple in January 2018. Mm-hmm. And like the start of our marriage, I feel like was kind of ironically, the unraveling of our faith from that point forward.
Yeah, from then on, church attendance was very sporadic, to say the least. Maybe a handful of times a year we would go, until last year when the pandemic started and everything closed down. It was, we haven't returned to the endowment ceremony since probably August of 2018. And our experience is probably pretty mild. They've changed many things about the endowment ceremony over the years, and we definitely got the blandest one, but the cracks were already starting to form at that point, and it was kind of concerning to us.
Well, it wasn't like each other. It wasn't like us contributing like to each other's faith crisis or anything. Like, it wasn't anything like that. It was just once we were married, we both realized how volatile of a position we were in with the church, and we didn't really recognize it before until we got married. And then we both realized that we weren't as solid in the faith as we thought that we were. Just one aspect of what caused us to leave the church. And so when we get asked that general question frequently in lives and on TikTok, that it's kind of hard to answer because it's so multifaceted and it's such a long response. Like, we've only discussed really one aspect of it here, and we've already taken up like
10
minutes of your time. And so this video was just to focus on kind of when the cracks started to form and kind of the big things. So we just kind of started there. There will obviously be more things to come, but essentially this is what led us down like the path to
the rabbit
hole and down off the covenant path, as they would say, to leaving the Mormon church.
If you would like to know more about our story, we're planning on posting weekly, probably on Fridays, just sharing more in-depth stories about how we got to the point that we're in right now. So if you'd like to follow along with us, subscribe. You can check out our TikTok. We'll link it in the description. And thank you for watching.